cut those taxes.
Excuse me, it's important you ask the questions because you want people's votes. How much extra money would you raise by changing the current corporation tax and capital gains tax structures?
But Andrew, we've talked about in absolute detail about the current tax system, and we said actually that the money that the decisions that the government have made and the decisions on where they're spending current money is completely inappropriate.
So how much would you save?
You've cut 50%. In my constituency, both of my councils have seen over 50% cuts to their budget. No. So all of the people that need support are in acute services now, crippling our NHS.
So you would be able to give them more money by changing the corporation tax and changing the capital gains tax to raise more money.
You don't cut taxes when you need that money to help. You should be investing.
You don't know, do you?
You should be investing
you just
in those
don't know,
services.
Do you?
What do you make of her then as the Deputy Prime Minister? Do you trust her?
No.
Why not?
I think she's a load of rubbish. She doesn't do anything for Ashton.
What do you make of these secret proposals by Angela Rayner, the MP for this area, to increase taxes?
I heard it on the news this morning, and it's just another thing that the Labour government are doing. They're just taxing the people, just the same as Conservatives. We need a change.
It kind of sums her up, to be honest. Yeah. She's a very unequivocal woman who, I don't want to get too far into this, but nah. I don't think she's doing us any favours in
what we need is a proper Labour Party.
As long as I can get up in the morning, I'm happy.
Terrible.
Now let's talk about her big moment with Andrew Neil. Oh yes, the epic, televised public takedown where Angela tried to form coherent thoughts, while Andrew Neil, the professional intellectual predator, sensed weakness before she even spoke. Watching her struggle with basic economic questions was like watching someone try to defuse a bomb using a fork and pure hope. Spoiler alert, it exploded slow motion, high definition, with subtitles for the politically confused.
So
can I bring you back to my question? What would Labour do?
Well, we've already talked about, some of the taxation decisions that the government have made around inheritance tax, capital gains tax, corporation tax, where you've given away money. Okay. This is what Jeremy was talking about in Prime Minister's question today. You've given away money that actually, quite frankly, we need to spend. And it's not just about an ageing population. That is phony. People know about the ageing population for some time. We've cut the criteria so people can't get community care. We treat our older people at the moment like dogs. It's a disgrace. We shouldn't do that.
But, excuse me,
putting the money in the primary care
Would you
services.
reverse the cuts on corporation tax?
I think that the cuts on corporation tax are missing a point because we need that money. We need that money at the moment.
Would you reverse it? Hold on.
Inheritance tax.
Would you reverse them?
I think that at the moment, cutting at a time where we need those services and people need those services is the wrong decision to make.
But I'm asking you, would you reverse the cut in corporation?
Angela Rayner is that rare kind of politician who actually seems proud of not being prepared like it's some sort of working class badge of honour. Look at me. I don't need facts. I've got vibes. But Angela, the vibes have already left the building, and no, they didn't pay union dues on the way out. So don't bother chasing them.
But I'm telling you, Andrew, that our priority is
you're not telling me the question.
I am. I'm saying that the cuts in corporation tax, the cuts in inheritance tax, the cuts in capital gains tax.
But what's the cut in capital gains tax?
But what's really important, Andrew?
No, excuse me. I'm asking you a question. What's the cut in the capital gains tax?
They've cut the capital gains tax. They did that. They did that as part of the coalition government.
No, they raised the capital gains tax in the coalition government.
Well, what I'm saying, Andrew, and
what you're saying is wrong. They raised the capital gains tax to 28%.
What I'm saying is that they've given tax cuts to absolutely the richest in the country at the same time where they've told the poorest people in this country over the past. It is true. At the same time that you've told the people in this.
Remember when she said she wanted to level up the country? Apparently, that means dragging everyone down to match her own level of political understanding, which floats somewhere between Peppa Pig economics and I saw a TikTok about inflation. Once, Angela treats facts the way cats treat water, confused by them, suspicious of them, and completely determined to avoid contact at all costs.
Today should have been a breeze for Keir Starmer, the first Labour Prime Minister to address a Labour conference in 15 years, a return to power with a stonking majority, the Tories reduced almost to a rump and mired in yet another interminable leadership contest. But it's far from a breeze. Labour's honeymoon ended before there was even time to pop open the champagne. Labour's already losing ground in the polls. It's already lost its lead in Scotland. And Starmer's personal ratings are tanking. The fragility of winning a massive majority on just over a third of the vote, it's an unprecedented outcome in a British election, has been exposed.
Let's not forget her most treasured skill shouting over people in Parliament, like she's trying out for the lead role for a kitchen argument. Because nothing says future Prime Minister like turning every policy debate into an episode of Real Housewives of Westminster. She's like a foghorn with opinions loud, jarring, and mostly affected by the political weather. Now, Andrew Neil being the human emphaner that he has made the terrible mistake of actually asking her real questions. Unforgivable, really. Didn't he know she was only there for slogans, not substance? It was like giving someone a driving test when they thought they were just hopping on a bus tour. The poor woman looked like she was trying to summon economic theory through sheer willpower, silently hoping a quote from Keynes might appear somewhere in the ceiling tiles.
Almost everything folks don't like about this Labour government was started under the Tories, which makes voters reluctant to give the Conservatives much of a hearing and certainly undermines whatever it is Tory shadow ministers are saying. It's striking that so much of today's political dialogue is now between Labour and Reform, with the Tories marginalised or even excluded from the conversation. The polls tell their own dire story for the Tories. The latest ones have them on 16 to 18%, an historic low, with Reform pushing 30%, Labour.
Every time Angela Rayner opened her mouth, it felt like watching a game show where the prize was basic understanding and she kept hitting the buzzer without knowing the rules. You could almost hear the rusty gears turning in her head as she mentally flipped through an imaginary binder titled Emergency Buzzwords, Use When Clueless. Out came words like fairness, working people, and the all-time favourite, Tories bad, each one less connected to the actual question than the last. It wasn't so much an interview, it was watching someone freestyle their way through a GCSE economics exam of programming with wine coolers. Her answers had the structure of a TED Talk earned by an AI trained only on protest signs and inspirational Instagram quotes. GDP. Oh, that clearly stands for good day, pet, fiscal responsibility. Sounds like a trendy new oat milk. You'd get more reliable economic theory from a drunk uncle shouting at a slot machine.
I had to endure it as a ginger, so I've got one up there. I've seen firsthand the difference that makes, and so has Keir. We grew up in different ends of the country and at different times. Not too different. But we endured the same insecurities and hardship that so many working people face. I guess the one difference is, though, I had to endure it as a ginger. So I've got one up there.
Angela's strategy: when logic fails, just yell louder. When a question gets too close to actual knowledge, she pivots usually to billionaires harding gold like dragons and acts like volume equals vision. This isn't just political theatre, it's a clown car with a foghorn behind the wheel and no brakes in sight. Now, let's talk about qualifications. Her defenders proudly say she rose through the ranks, like a balloon in a wine tunnel. Yes, she started as a care worker, which is genuinely admirable. But that doesn't automatically qualify someone to run the country. That's like hiring your Uber driver to pilot a Boeing 747 just because they once dropped you off at the airport. Angela often calls herself real, as if that's a complete policy platform. But realness doesn't equal readiness. I'd like my surgeon to be real too, but I'd also prefer they didn't think open heart was just a metaphor.
We will build on. A pledge is not an indication. A pledge is a word, is your word. It's a pledge.
Bit collective
action.
It's
not in your pledge.
Well, the pledge is 3 lines, Andrew. You're asking me for more detail and I'm giving it to you.
Well, but the fact is the 2016 Trade Union Act, when it comes to cribbing and curtailing union power, is not the key legislation.
Give me that.
Because you're hiding behind the process.
No, the Labour Party
Why
said-
don't you do what the other candidates do and tell... Don't Labour members have a right, as they decide whether to vote for you or not, they want to know where your money's coming from?
I've been asked that many times. I've said it's coming from trade unions, from crowdfunding, from individual donations.
Who's your biggest donor?
It's coming from those three. One of my biggest donors was put up on the website, I think, yesterday.
Right, that's one of the lawyer.
Yeah.
There's this strange trend of celebrating incompetence as if it's authenticity. Oh, she's just like us. No, she's not. She's in Parliament. We're out here paying taxes to fund her poor decisions and even worse hairstyles. Every time Angela Rayner spoke, it felt like tuning into some chaotic new quiz show. Guess that policy except the host doesn't know the rules. The audience is in tears, and the grand prize is national embarrassment. And out came the usual phrases: fairness, hard-working families, levelling up, and of course, the ever-reliable Tories bad. Didn't matter what the actual question was.
Working with allies on the UN resolution, we've got to have a government in Syria, a political solution that protects civilians and infrastructure, because as we've seen with the Assad regime, it has been unstable. We want to see that stability and we'll work towards that with our allies.
Bloody dar. I mean, what the hell is that all about? What all she's doing there, she's being drilled by the media advisors, the press office. Right, just say something about the UN resolution, and we're sticking to that, and we're working with allies. Very difficult, fast-moving situation. In other words, she didn't have the first clue what she...
Ask her about inflation, and suddenly she's off on a story about someone's non who can't afford to boil the kettle. Mention GDP, and you'll get a passionate speech about Greg's sausage rolls and local bus routes. Her answers had all the clarity of a horoscope written by a toddler. It was like watching a TED Talk scripted by a broken Etch-a-Sketch. GDP must mean good day, pet, fiscal policy. Sounds like a new TikTok dance. Honestly, even a houseplant could absorb more economic theory just by sitting next to an economics textbook. Angela's favourite move was to shout over the question as if volume alone might unlock the secrets of the universe. And if the interviewer dared to dig deeper, she'd suddenly veer off into a dramatic story about evil billionaires bathing in champagne while miners chew on gravel.
Scottish phrase earlier in this interview, let me use another one. People are simply scunnered with Labour and the Tories. They don't want to vote for you. And indeed, if you look at these polls, Labour on, 25, you on 15, 16, your combined share of the vote is the lowest ever. They just don't want to vote Tory truths. They're not listening. They don't care what your truth is. Almost everything people have come to dislike about this government, this Labour government, started under the...
Its politics turned into pantomime where facts are optional. Flair is mandatory, and every question is met with the wild energy of someone whose only training came from binge-watching angry Facebook videos. This isn't policy, it's panto, and Angela's got the lead role, complete with jazz hands and a foghorn. Let's be honest, she's never met a soundbite she didn't want to adopt and raise as her own. Working people, cost of living, social justice, translation. She's that kid in school who never did the homework, but still got picked as class president just because she had energy. Now she's got power and she's using it to steer the Labour Party straight into the abyss with the confidence of someone who just discovered spell check.
Your government created the most expensive domestic electricity in the world. That's what we have to pay in our households. The most expensive, even higher than Germany, whose energy policies have been even more bonkers than your energy.
Remember her speeches at party conferences? Of course not, because no one does. They're the political version of fast food, forgettable, greasy, packed with buzzwords, and guaranteed to cause indigestion. It's all delivery, no digestion, style over substance, volume over value, slogans over strategy. Angela doesn't do nuance, she does blame. Everything wrong with the country, the Tories, inflation, Tories, NHS crisis, Tories, your milk's gone bad, probably the Tories. She's turned political debate into a never-ending blame game. Angela's world where Labour never has to take responsibility for anything, because they've outsourced all guilt to the other side of the aisle. And let's not forget her favourite policy tool, performative outrage. Whenever something bad happens, she suddenly appears on Twitter or outside Downing Street like an angry ghost, condemning it with all the depth of a Facebook status.
What happened in France, what is unfolding in France, is the defeat of the centre and the failure of centrist policies. These are exactly the policies which Keir Starmer is going to be elected on.
Yeah.
If he fails in Britain, and don't forget his policies are obsessed with net zero, pretty relaxed about immigration, high taxes, industrial strategy, metropolitan-based, metropolitan concerns rather than provincial concerns. If he fails, well, I can tell you this, Britain ain't going further left. There's only other one way it is going, and that is to the more populist.
But when it's time to offer real solutions, she disappears like common sense at a star press conference. Angela Rayner is a walking, talking warning sign of what happens when populism tries to pass itself off as progress. She's not the cure. For right-wing failure, she's its twin, just wearing a different shade of lipstick. Labour didn't find a voice for the people. They found a loud chaos machine with the political instincts of a stunned sheep. Every time Angela Rayner spoke, it felt like watching a political séance where common sense was the ghost that never showed up. Imagine someone trying to explain quantum physics while building IKEA furniture with no instructions and a rubber spoon.
Worst economy ever, which is just patent nonsense, and it was soon seen to be talking Britain down. There's already a sense of desperation. Hoary old fallbacks are being retrieved from bottom drawers. A war on waste. Never heard that before. Crack down on benefit fraud. Ooh, nobody's tried that. Tougher on tax evasion. Ooh, new to me. All worthwhile, of course, in their own right. None likely to much ignite the British economy.
That's the vibe. She'd walk into interviews like she had all the answers neatly stored in her head, only for it to become painfully obvious she was pulling policy ideas from the back of a cereal box. And not even a good cereal, one of those cheap knockoff brands that cuts the roof of your mouth and still tastes like cardboard and regret. Her buzzwords were like bargain bin magic spells. Fairness, ordinary people, levelling up, billionaires bad, chanted in whatever order sounded loudest. Not smartest. Ask her about interest rates, and you'd get a sad poem about someone's dog freezing in a council flat. Ask her about public sector reform, and she'd launch into a spoken word performance about her cousin's hairdresser who once paid VAT on a shampoo.
On the record to our viewers that memo was not leaked by you or anyone connected to you.
I do not leak. I think leaks are very damaging. I'm 100% behind our cabinet and the decisions that we make collectively.
Could anybody affiliated to you, any ally, friend, supporter of you, have leaked this memo?
Well, again,
Are you sure it was no one connected to you?
I'm not going to stray into the leak other than I absolutely...
But you just said it wasn't you.
But I absolutely condemn anyone who leaks piecemeal information about what our government is up to. We work collectively as a government, and I fully support.
Her thought process was like a browser with 47 tabs open, all frozen, with a pop-up ad yelling blame the Tories. Her entire economic strategy could probably fit on a sticky note, scribbled in crayon. And let's not even start on the body. Language grand. Sweeping gestures like she's auditioning for a Shakespeare play set in a supermarket car park. Angela doesn't answer questions. She performs emotional slam poetry with a side of aggressive finger-pointing. It's less of a political stance and more of a high-stakes game of Mad Libs shouted through a megaphone. Now picture someone in a high-waist jacket made entirely of contradictions, waving a placard that just says hope, but spelled wrong. That's Angela Rayner's policy pitch. Less Chancellor of the Exchequer, more contestant on Britain's Got Confusion.
Funnily enough, Angela Rayner doesn't have a unique thought to herself because
Lewis Goodall, who's the one who's interviewing her, before that, the start of that clip, actually says, "Do you think, Angela, that you're the victim of misogyny and classism?" Then she goes, "Oh yeah, I am actually." She doesn't have original thought in her brain, quite frankly, Angela Rayner. So she's just gone, "Yeah, well, I'm going to be a victim."
If Labour's hope rests on Angela Rayner, then Britain's future looks like a sitcom with no writers and way too much improv. She's not the change we need, she's the chaos we were trying to escape. You can't build a national vision on vibes and outrage. And yet, here she is armed with soundbites, surface-level style, and the confidence of someone who's never been told no by a focus group. So the next time she marches out with a laminated pamphlet of recycled promises, remember this. Or don't, honestly. It's terrifying. Angela Rayner doesn't need to be taken down by her critics. She's doing a perfectly fine job of imploding on her own. The real tragedy, she thinks the fireworks are applause.